It's been said before, and I'll say it again. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. So where would you rather be than right here and right now on the Ralph Rant? Let's go.
Welcome to the Ralph Rant, your source for hard-hitting Buffalo Bills takes. Now, here's your host of the Ralph Rant, that veteran watcher of generations of Bills teams, the prophet who predicted Josh Allen's greatness, that opinionated so-and-so you've walked out on parties because of, the Ralph.
Welcome to the Ralph Rant. How about those Buffalo Bills? The Bills have defeated the New York Jets 30-10. And interestingly enough, when the Bills played the Ravens last week, the Bills and the Ravens were both number one and number two in the number of points given up. And in this week, the Bills and the Ravens both gave up the fewest points. Now, that's thus far here in the week. Both 10, as far as I know. I didn't catch the absolute last part of that game. But who cares about that game? Because the Buffalo Bills, in what was supposed to be this trap game, after expending all that emotion last week, simply end up going in and opening a can of whoop-ass on the Jets. And it's interesting how when we're talking about teams that playing their first game and how it appears to have gone, and we get ideas about how that team is going to be going forward. Certainly, after Bills-Ravens, of course, it was a miraculous win, but there was the talk about how the Bills' defense had so many problems. Boy, they were aggressive today. And then, certainly, the Jets, having gotten just beaten by the Steelers last week, and Jets looking like they were looking good, putting up, 32 points, I believe, against that Steelers defense. 3 this week. So that's what we've got going on, and if you want to join the show here, we're not going to be here very long today because I know a lot of us are very, very interested in watching this 425 kick that is the Super Bowl rematch. But we're going to talk about it, and if you're in the house, go ahead and stick a comment up there. I'd love to see it. We'll talk about what you think you saw today with this victory. But everybody knows, and now every one of the Jets knows, that you can hit Josh Allen's nose, but it doesn't matter because it'll be just fine. Yeah, Josh suffers a nosebleed in that game, and somebody got right inside of his face mask. I had somebody call me immediately and say, well, I like the visor on Josh. Well, he didn't even put one on after that. So, but the outcome of the game was great. I've got my notes here. I'm going to go through them for you very quickly. And what have we got here? Well, the first note is one from back in 1964. If you were watching the Bills back then, you had a man named Mr. Gilchrist running the ball for the Buffalo Bills, Cookie Gilchrist. And as it was said back then, the saying was, "Looky, looky, here comes Cookie." Well, today it was the same thing. James Cook having a great day, couple of scores, one from the goal line, and then one on the ramble that was the long run where he gets free just past the line of scrimmage and just put the throttles forward and easily outruns the rest of the Jets secondary. But one of the main points I'm going to make here on this show today, I just wrote a few of my sort of interesting sayings here. The first one I've got, of course, was "Looky, looky, here comes Cookie." Then I've got Elijah Moore, Curtis less. My goodness, Elijah Moore demonstrating just the kind of player I think we need in that receiver room who's got some speed. We saw him have some success on jet sweeps. We saw him catch a long ball for a big first down. I think we're really liking that, and I thinking that Curtis Samuel, without that sticky contract, I just makes me wonder how long he could be with the Bills. unless somebody needs a receiver to trade for. But Curtis Samuel has now been a healthy scratch 2 weeks in a row, and Elijah Moore is looking great. So that's looking like a good selection. What else do we have here? Cameron Johnston. Not only did he punt very well in his first game as a Buffalo Bill, but the guy looks like a linebacker. It's interesting to see, but he is known for putting punts inside the 20 quite a bit, and he did so today on a couple of occasions, and it looks pretty good for what he'll do. Jackson Hawes, once again, with another catch and run. And I keep on saying that this is Travis Kelce Swift 2.0. I'm getting bashed by saying that, but I'm going to stick with it because Jackson Hawes is a good receiver and he's an animal as a blocker. And, of course, when you have that combination with him on the line with a threat for the Bills to run, now the Bills used to run Alec Anderson in their jumbo package a lot last season. And you knew it was jumbo. You knew exactly what was going to be the outcome when jumbo package was out there and Bills were going big in the front line. Now with Jackson Hawes, that's not so much of a need because Jackson Hawes and his blocking ability and his ability to perhaps just step into a flat or just go into a soft zone in the just past the line of scrimmage for perhaps after a chip. He catches that ball and rambles, and he gets yards after catch. We've seen that in a couple of occasions now with him. But I think there's a few other points to make here before I get to really what I think is the biggest one. Another one, Cole Bishop. Cole Bishop is nasty. I think we saw a guy earlier in the preseason, of course, having been injured, not having gotten as much time, and we have seen him perhaps struggle a little bit, perhaps in the first game versus the Ravens. Well, this afternoon, we just saw a nastiness with him. He got a sack for the Bills on Tyrod Taylor, I believe. Buffalo actually knocked Justin Fields out of the game earlier. That is what brought Tyrod Taylor, not Tyler, into the game. But moreover, I mean, we saw him also just plant Garrett Wilson on the sideline, and there was an unnecessary roughness call on that. I don't think anybody in the Bills is going to be too upset about that. I think we're really pleased to see that he's got some nasty to him, and he's getting better because he's learning this defense. He's learning how to react without thinking. So it's actually a good situation. But I think one of the biggest points I want to make on this game, which was game number 1001 for the Bills franchise, and of course, if you saw the telecast, Nance and Romo explained that this is number 1002 for the Jets. And of course, the Jets and the Bills, they were each other's opponent in the very first game they ever played in 1960 in the AFL. And of course, this is 1002 for the Jets. Well, of course, as we heard, the DeMar Hamlin game in Cincinnati, as it's come to be known, actually didn't count as a game because it was ended. That's why the Bills played 1001 today rather than 1002. I think the biggest point that I need to make here in this game, and again, I'm not going to keep you very long because we are going to go ahead and want to get on this Super Bowl rematch that's kicking off here, and I believe about 2 minutes from now. But I get so tired of hearing the national media, and they did it again last week, going on and on about how the Bills, without Josh Allen, are nothing. How they don't win last week against the Ravens without Josh Allen. And certainly that's true. But it's one thing to say Josh Allen is the greatest quarterback, and of course he's going to be awesome on perhaps any team he's on, and of course makes the Bills much better. That's one thing. But to say that Josh Allen carries this team, which infers that you are saying that the rest of the team is weak, not enough receiving weapons, no number one receiver. Defense can't stop the run last week, got shredded by Lamar Jackson. What we saw today was Josh Allen going 14 of 25 for 148 yards. He did not score. And certainly, that is not what I call carrying the team. He did not carry the team today at all. And yet, he still was on the bench for the last half of the fourth quarter with Mitch Trubisky in because the Bills were up 30-3. And of course, there was the garbage time touchdown by the Jets, and I know the Bills wanted to prevent that. But of course, the Bills had their twos out there at that point of the game. So it's fascinating that we still hear that, but the Bills today actually won this ball game with Josh Allen, again, going 14 of 25 for 148 yards and no touchdowns rushing and no touchdowns passing. I don't even know how it's possible. Anyway, we got some guys in the house here. Definitely. Vito, certainly. 1963, baby. That's right. In fact, you can see my gray hair under this. That's why I'm the Ralph. I was born within days of the formation of the Buffalo Bills franchise. Yep, so I'm dating myself, but yeah, that's the case. And looky, here comes Cookie. And of course, those same Buffalo Bills in the 1965 championship, or was it the 66, I think, going into the first Super Bowl, losing to the Jets after they'd won the AFL championship in 63 and 64. I have my years wrong there, but it was Kansas City that prevented the Bills from going to the very first Super Bowl. And so that sort of history has been there quite a bit. But yeah, absolutely, 1963. And Jack Kemp, rest in peace. Jack was awesome. And the one of the guys that followed not too long after him, and you guys that have been watching the Bills for that long, is Dennis Shaw, if you remember him. And I was a Boy Scout, and I don't know how it was arranged, but I was at some Boy Scout meeting where Dennis Shaw appeared, and we got to talk to him and got his autographs. He was my favorite Bills quarterback back then, so pretty cool stuff. And we got some more comments in the house. Ash Ferguson, yes, go Bills. Great game for Buffalo. Solid. No question about it. Always in the lead. And certainly we heard this stuff, again, from Romo, as long as I could actually handle him. Well, he's not as bad as Chris Collinsworth, so you can't put him down that much. But there was this talk about the Bills having a trap game, having an emotional letdown. Emotional letdown. Do you know how many emotions this team has had losing in the playoffs, the playoff elimination games? That emotion. This is not a up-and-coming upstart team that managed to eke out a win over the Ravens and is still full of themselves when they get here. This team is battle-tested. It has battle scars, very thick scar tissue. So this nonsense about trap games and games that don't mean anything, a lot of people are putting Coach McDermott down, but I'll tell you what, he's got those guys ready every week because every single one of these games is important. You will always hear that from all of them. And we got some other here. Zion Logue, absolutely. Logue looked great, Ash, definitely. Logue looked great in the preseason. A lot of people didn't think too much of him in the early season, and quite frankly, last season rather. And frankly, when you come in the middle of a season, it's kind of difficult. But he looked great in this preseason. And the fact that we held the Jets to 10 points and mostly to 3, and with the exception of that garbage time touchdown, while missing arguably 2 of their best defensive players. Ed Oliver, certainly, and Taron Johnson. And of course, you might have, some arguments on that one, but certainly 2 out of the best 3 or 4 defensive players. So that was fascinating. I was yelling so much here, I got a cough for. Pardon me. Anyway, we're keeping going here. What else we've got going? So Vito's in the house. Prater looks more pure kicker than Bass. Tell me, guys, do you not just get this feeling of comfort when Prater comes out on the field? And how consistent on the kickoffs. He's putting this ball between the 2-yard line and the goal line on every one of his kickoffs. So Matt Prater, of course, he's signed to the active roster now, certainly. And we heard McDermott talk about, Bass is our guy. Of course, he's on injured reserve right now. And him coming back. And if you've watched enough McDermott, you know that was a little bit contrived when he was talking about, Bass is our guy as soon as he's ready. Guys, I got news for you. Matt Prater is the kicker of this team for the season. That is quite clear. All right, we got Jeff Eimer in the house. Go Bills, indeed. Absolutely awesome. And the Bills not only won this game, but they took the Jets out of the game so early. And I made this point in our show yesterday that I did with Tommy at the Mafia Sports Report. I believe that the Bills and what they gained in terms of confidence, being able to come back against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, I believe that had a huge effect for them this week because, truthfully, the Jets are conceptually the same. They want to run. They've got a quarterback who's a threat to run. And certainly Justin Fields did get some yards on them today. And horrifyingly for the Jets, that one long run by Justin Fields represented a significant percentage of their overall yardage, which I think they didn't get more than 150 yards from scrimmage. So that's definitely sure. Prater's definitely excellent, of course. And I did not see that. Thank you, Ash, for telling me the Dolphins lost again. They're coming into Buffalo, morale broken. And that's certainly true. They tried at home, which they should have been able to do well in that stadium in September against any team coming from the north. But I think by the same token, as much as you might think about the Patriots winning, it's just like when the Steelers won against the Jets. The Steelers seem to come off as being, basically one of the top teams coming in. And last I saw, somebody give me an update on that. Last I saw, I think the Seahawks traveling east were up on the Steelers at one point. If anybody's got that final score, I think I can look it up here. Sorry for looking away from our camera here, but so what do we have here? We have some final scores going here. Wow, New York and Dallas, Giants and Dallas tied. And I don't want to look at anything about the Eagles and Chiefs. I'm not going to keep you guys very long here unless you keep on hanging out and asking all these great questions because, of course, we want to see that. And I got to say, I've had the NFL Sunday ticket since the last century. I think 1997 I got it. So I'm basically pushing 30 years on having the NFL Sunday ticket. Of course, it went away from DirecTV a couple of years ago, went over to YouTube TV. It's the best thing the NFL ever did for the Sunday ticket. One click records every single football game of the entire year. I don't have to go say, oh, where's this team? I want to record that game. No, they're all recorded. And then when it is not a situation with the Bills playing a 1 o'clock kick on a Sunday, which is actually kind of rare for the Bills now that they are the contenders such as they are, and play more 425 contests and more primetime contests. The beauty of YouTube TV is with each game recorded and bringing up various windows for each game, And the keystroke fast forward 15 seconds situation you could blast between plays and watch a lot of games. But I did not get to watch those all today because when the Bills are live, I watch the Bills live. I never do that with them. So Dolphins lost again. 66, and yes, it's Bills nemesis, the Chief. Yeah, you and me, brother. I turned 66 a while back, just in the first part of August. I think the Bills were actually formed in October of 59, so I was about a month and a half or 2 months old, something like that. Any word on Milano? I did not know. Tell me about what's going on with Milano. I had sound off for a while. You'll have to inform me on that. I'm supposed to be the host and know that. But let me know if that's the situation, if there's a injury or something with Milano. He was a monster today. I was very impressed with all the tackles for loss the Bills had, not respecting it. And, okay, I'm just looking at the notes here that Ash, you're saying that Milano's good. I didn't see anything on him and watched the entire game. And then what else we have here? Bosa, of course, he was awesome today. And, you saw actually the Bills' strength and conditioning coach, Will Greenberg, on the sideline. And I think he has a lot to do with taking care of really two big situations on defense, both with Deion Walker coming in with the back problem, and Deion Walker looks fine, is playing every week, and Joey Bosa also. And I think because Bosa often, he didn't have big injuries. He would have soft tissue things like calf injuries and so forth. So that is something we're not seeing as much, hopefully, with Bosa this season. Of course, there was talk that Will Greenberg, hey, what's he doing with all the soft tissue injuries in the preseason? But the Bills have recovered from a lot of those, and they're looking pretty well. Yeah, the Bills pulled out the starters for certain early on. And what else we got here? That's several of you in the house here. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you're not subscribed to the Ralph Rant, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. We're just getting going on doing live shows. This is actually the second live show I've done. It's a lot of fun because I get to interact with you rather than sitting here all night and making these videos, doing take after take, and then all of the editing and so forth. This is a blast, and I was able to put this together very quickly, actually during the course of the game, deciding I would go ahead and go live. But I think the Bills are on their way, and of course we've got a situation where the Bills now have a very manageable schedule going really up to and through the bye. And when they come off the bye, they'll be at the Panthers. And normally coming out of the bye, the Bills might look a little sluggish. That's been a historical thing. Versus the Panthers, they ought to be fine. And then the Chiefs the next week. And then, of course, we won't know at that point where the Chiefs are. I'm contending that the Chiefs have dents in them that are being exposed as we go along here. They were badly dented in the Super Bowl, then had a really long wait till their next game, then dented again by the Chargers, and then another long wait till their next game, which is just kicking off here, actually in the last while. So we'll be watching that as I get out of this live stream today. But we definitely have to be really pleased with how the Bills look today. Very solid. There was no emotional letdown I saw from the win last week. And I believe the biggest thing is against a Jets team that actually showed well last week versus the Steelers, should have won that game. Hopes were very high. And then the Bills go to the Jets, and MetLife is the Bills have not had their best games really at MetLife. We've seen a lot of cases of the early openers. The Bills were down 17-3. The Bills, of course, in the one, and then The Bills knocked Aaron Rodgers out 2 years ago and then ended up losing to Zach Wilson on that Monday night opener. So you know that MetLife is a situation for the Bills. And indeed, they go in, and Josh Allen doesn't have his best game versus them. He had some drops. I'm not putting it on Josh. His one rush early on was huge. But the Bills were able to put the hurt on the Jets early, take their fans out of it early. And then even today, with Josh having that 14 of 25 for 148 yards, Cook rushes for 132. I want to hear what the national press will say about the Bills and about how they have to maybe back off on their comments that the Bills are nothing without Josh Allen, because Josh Allen's numbers today, the numbers were pedestrian. But Josh Allen himself, of course, was great as always. Some awesome throws. Again, he had a few drops, but he had some clutch throws at the right time. He kept drives going, and the Bills built up that lead. And you could see on the faces of the Jets and their crowd that this was not going to be their day. So what else do we have here? All right, thank you very much, Ash. Great comments here. Appreciate you being here. Ralph, I told everyone we were going to win. Week 1 was practice. We were prepared for a team like Baltimore, but not quite Baltimore. And I agree with that, Ash. And the other point I would make is to the fact that we did have, perhaps by some standard or another, under-repped starters in the preseason. Josh Allen doesn't play at all. Many of the ones aren't out there. You never see the complete first team except for maybe a few series. So when it did get to the Ravens, I think that first half kind of may have been a little bit like a lot of the starters preseason. And you've got to get in the mode of this game, and it's difficult. It's difficult when you get started. But then in the second half of that game, Bills came around. They were just fine. And then, of course, the ending, which was incredible. And then today, just a very workmanlike game. Knocked off the Jets. Opened a can of whoop ass on them. Now we've got a couple division games now coming up. Dolphins coming to Buffalo on Thursday, and that should be a very interesting one. And then the Bills actually have a mini bye after that game. So this early part of the season is shaping up to be very good, and I'm pretty certain we'll see the Bills progress well. I got to check that out with Milano being out since the mid-third quarter. I did not hear or see anything about that. The only thing I hope, if it was something minor, by the time the score was what it was at that point of the game, it might not have been important to get him back. And, of course, I've heard some of you guys say that he actually he wasn't spoken about during the game, and you didn't hear anything about it. So that might just been a tweak he got, or maybe a bruise or something. And, go ahead, Matt, sit down, take the rest of the afternoon off. We've got this covered. So what else can we say? But we're on our way here, and the Bills winning this game like they did, that's an awesome situation, because I predicted the Bills would go undefeated back in July. I saw a guy from Pro Football Talk just make the same prediction this week after the Ravens game. But I think with a team that's got kind of the battle-tested scar tissue, that you're not just going to break through it. And the effect of that win last week has to be considered on what that does for the Bills going forward. And in fact, guys, if you're in the chat now, I will plug again the fact that I will be having former Bills great and Pittsburgh Steelers great Arthur Moats, number 52. He's the linebacker that ended Brett Favre's streak of consecutive starts. He will be on the show Wednesday night. October 1st, live at 8 p.m. Mark your calendars. We're going to ask him a lot of questions. And one of those I want to ask him is, what kind of effect can the win, like the Bills had against the Ravens, especially having won it like they did, rather than walking away with a 34-20 victory, perhaps, instead winning it 41-40, what kind of effect that can have on a team and how well they can go. And Ash, I'm leaving up your comment here because I'm loving the love. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I love your show. I'm coming all the way from the Bahamas. That is great. I've got guys in the Philippines, the Bahamas. I've got a guy in Portugal who watches the show. Thanks so much for being here and jumping in on it. And Vito, your other comment, Allen becoming a much smarter quarterback, eliminating turnovers, continues to mature. And I really love the move. If you saw him get that first down in the low red zone when he was going to throw from behind the line, he didn't. He ran. He hesitates a little bit in front of the Jets defender and steps out. I love seeing that. We are seeing him basically not having to put on the cape, not playing hero ball, and we're glad to see that. But and again, Knox, oh my goodness, that third down drop, I mean, right off his mitts. And I will tell you what will be the effect of that. We are going to see a lot more of Jackson Hawes on the field. I don't know his snap count for today. I'll have to get into that. We can't wait to get a look at the film from this game. But Jackson Hawes, he's a prick. I mean, he's nasty how he blocks guys. He does not just hit them. He does not just drive them. It's like he wants to let them know it was him. And then he's catching some balls and he's getting yards after catch. He's big. He could ramble. I believe he's going to be awesome. Oh, we got Charles Stone in the house. Great. Keystone State. All right. So I think your state has a Super Bowl champion. New York State doesn't have a recent one. Of course, its Bills are the only one in New York State, obviously. And definitely there was, I see Vito's comment, the batted balls at the line. We certainly saw a lot more from this defense today than we saw last week. And I think there was opinions out there, and this is how this works with the NFL and the first game reactions and what the suppositions are going into the season. Now, a supposition could have been that the Pittsburgh Steelers had an excellent defense, and with Aaron Rodgers, they might be a contender. There's actually people predicting them deep into the playoffs. But then you start the year, and the Jets put up 32 on them, but you're going to take your first opinion because you're going to say, okay, well, if the Jets did that well against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, which we know was great coming in, then the Jets offense actually must be pretty good with Justin Fields. And then we saw that performance today. So it's difficult to judge teams early on, and you really can't judge the Steelers on that basis. You can't judge the Jets, for that matter, on that basis, especially when you've got teams that are playing brand new quarterbacks. But the Buffalo Bills, with the setup they have and the continuity, I think this almost felt kind of like a practice today. And certainly Elijah Moore practicing those backflips. Perhaps he's got an idea of going to the Olympics as in gymnastics, but those were pretty amazing, a couple of them. You'll love to see that, though, because there's a guy who's not had a quarterback like this, and now he's on a team that does have one. So definitely getting the comments coming here still. Josh is Dolphins daddy, oh yeah, you bet on that. Charles, good to see you here in the house. And I think that might be the case because you're saying with a win by the Bills and the Finns might be looking for a new head coach. Well, listen, they did that just a few years ago with Joe Philbin, who was their head coach, and he was fired after 4 games. So that could be a possibility. And the Dolphins having to travel up to the Ralph with how that crowd's going to be, with the 2-0 Bills, and it being on a Thursday night, that could be a tough situation for the Dolphins. We'll see how it goes. But I believe we're going to see the Bills have some success there. And again, I'm sticking with the point that they're going to be undefeated. And I'm not so sure, and we'll see this afternoon because I'm get ready to go watch this thing in a little bit here, but I'm not so sure that their normal nemesis will be where they are. Of course, I believe the Ravens ended up winning, 41-10, I think was the final score today against the Browns. And certainly I think a lot of that is probably game script. Of course, the Ravens can move the ball, but I think the offense of Cleveland with Joe Flacco, and I don't know if he actually even finished the game or not. I've got to look at all this, but certainly the 41-10 means that the Browns offense was not on the field a great deal and didn't have a lot of success. But I see, Ash, you're talking about it. I'm not looking at any of those results yet for that game, so I want to move into that here very shortly. But guys, I'm not going to keep you much more here because this has been an awesome game today. I want to keep on watching some football like you do. We don't need to make this terribly long. It's already 36 minutes. It seems like it's been 10. I love these live streams. They're a blast. But guys, I'm going to let you go now, and we've talked about the points. I think we're in great shape, and we're going to see what's going to happen Thursday night. I will be back this week, and 41-17, as Ash says, which means now that, and I'll leave you with this, that the Buffalo Bills last week gave up the second most points in the league. And this week, thus far, they've given up the fewest with that Cleveland score to make it 17. So, again, let's go watch some football. I'm not going to do a 2-hour post-game here. We all saw what happened. Thank you very much for joining. If you are not part of the Ralph Rant, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and give me some likes if you can on the video. I really appreciate that. I love the insightful comments I get from you guys here in the live streams and on the comments on the videos also. We'll be back this week with a pregame look at what's going on for Thursday night. But until then, as Ash says, let's go Buffalo. So with that, go Bills. God bless. Do good. Be good. I am the Ralph. This is the Ralph Rant. I am out. Thank you so much for being here. See you next time.